think of marriage is a certain thing, which is the context for procreation, for the building of the nuclear family.
What about people that get married that don't have kids? Are you opposed to that? What if they get married, they decide, you know what, we don't need kids. I'm going to get fixed. You get your tubes tied. Let's travel the world.
Well, what do you mean am I opposed to it? I mean, I think that every married couple should be open to life.
But what if they don't want to? Are you opposed to them being married? If marriage is only for procreation and to bond a family together, what about people that are deeply in love that never want to have children?
I don't think it's not only procreation, but that is one of the fundamental definitional aspects of it. Of course, there's more to marriage just than that.
And what about people that are infertile? They fall in love and they realize that they can have babies and they don't really necessarily want to adopt. Is that okay for them to be married? Because then by definition, marriage falls into a completely different thing, because then it's a bond of love. It's a union of love.
Sure. I mean, that doesn't change the nature of marriage, though. It's a little bit like I say that what's the definition of a woman? Well, a woman is someone who by her nature can conceive children in her womb and bear children. And then the response is always, well, what about women who are infertile? Does that destroy your definition of woman? And it doesn't, because it's still a woman's nature to bear children. Not every woman will, and there will be disease and infertility and old age and all these things that will preclude that, but it's still of her nature to do so. And I would say the same thing for marriage. I mean,
for some reason, I don't like that comparison between defining what a woman is. Like, a woman is able to have children. Doesn't mean that she will. You know what I mean? And like I say, sickness and infertility and things of that nature doesn't make them any less of a woman. They're still a fucking woman. But I don't think that fair comparison with the institution of marriage, because marriage is different for everybody. I mean, granted, the majority of marriages, they do procreate and have kids, man, but I don't think that procreation is like embedded within definition of what marriage is. Marriage is the union between two motherfuckers that are in love. It's like the deepest, largest, grandiose type of label you can have between two people, right? Motherfuckers is married, husband and wife, wife and wife, husband and husband, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But man, I don't think procreation has anything to do with it. That's up to the couple to determine whether or not they want to do that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, he lost me. And then it's like, I mean, I really don't give a fuck at the end of the day. Like, it ain't that fucking deep to me. But it seems to bother Matt Walsh that people who get married do not want to have kids. He said, I think they should be open to it. Like, I ain't like the way that shit sound. Like, bro, like, fuck out it. Like, I feel like he's putting his own label of what marriage is. Like, that's not, I disagree. So it's like, I think that he would look at a marriage between two people who decide not to have children like as inferior to a marriage between two people who do decide to have children. And that's not fair, like, because it's different between marriage is different between the people. Like, they it's up to them however the fuck they want to live their goddamn life. And especially now in 2022, marriage looks extremely different from couple to couple to couple to couple, bro. Here's like a really like an archaic old school perspective on what marriage is. Right. I'm saying, back in the day, you fucking married, you had a bunch of kids to goddamn, live. You know what I'm saying? Have kids on the fucking farm and shit working. But nowadays, it ain't that fucking same. So, but yeah, I'm definitely side on Rogan on this shit.
It is natural in a marriage for procreation to occur. It's not always going to happen in reality, though, but that's still one of the natural functions of marriage. And
a natural function of marriage, a natural function of a relationship could be having children. Not just having children, period, is a natural function of being a human on this earth. I guess having children out of wedlock and all that shit and how society views it is a bit different, but to call it natural, I don't agree with it. It's just he has made that connection to himself, right? Clearly marriage is very important to him and has a distinct definition on it, but procreation being, like you said, one of the number one fundamental, or however the fuck he worded it, I'm saying, you prioritize having kids in the marriage, and I don't think that's valid, especially not now, 2022.
Married couples who can't conceive children, there are other ways to.
But what if they don't want to have kids?
be parents, like adoption, for example.
If they want to. Right. Sure. But if people want to be married and don't want to ever have children, are you opposed to them being married?
Well, I wouldn't advocate a law that would prevent it.
But would it change the definition of what their marriage is to you because they don't want to have a family? They just want to have a loving bond?
How it sounds.
I think this would be a couple that is rejecting one of the fundamental aspects of marriage, and that they should be open to life. I would hope that in the future they would be, but
isn't that just a personal choice? I mean,
I'm like, who the fuck are you to tell them what they should be doing? You know what I mean? Like, come on, you God, bro. I don't like the way that shit sound. Bro. Like, fuck out of here. If they decide they don't want to have kids and travel the fucking world and do them, shit, dude, that's on them. You know what I mean? But who the fuck are you to say what they should be doing within their fucking marriage? I don't like that shit. Like, despite outside of the fact that I just don't like the way that shit sounded, but that's just unfair. You know what I mean? Like to look at their marriage as inferior because they're not doing what you think they should be doing within the fucking confines that their own relationship. You know what I mean? That's a problem, dog. You don't got no control over that shit. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers can do what the hell they want to do.
You can have a very fulfilling life if you just follow your pursuits and your dreams and your interests, and you find someone that shares those interests with you and you share time together. It's very fulfilling and loving.
Yeah, it's a personal choice, and that I'm not advocating for like a law that says that you if you're married you have to have X number of kids.
But then why are you opposed to two gay people doing that?
Well, because again, it's not about choice. It's about what this institution, marriage is an institution, and what is it, and what purpose does it serve? And
the purpose of getting married is not to have children. That's not the purpose of getting married. I disagree with that. You don't get married to have kids. You can have kids whenever the fuck you want. And marriage means something different to everybody. You know what I mean? I disagree with this man wholeheartedly.
I do not agree with tearing down or changing this definition, especially because the people who have changed the definition haven't come up with a new one. So they say, well, that's not what marriage is. So for thousands of years, we said marriage is the procreative union.
Who said that 1,000 years? No, it's the union of motherfuckers that want to be together forever till death do us part. I'm gonna be with you the rest of my motherfucking life. We signing this shit that says that this is what the fuck this means, and the only way you get rid of me is if you fucking die or divorce, right? And then of course, if you're gonna be with somebody forever, and you haven't had kids, and you know, the only real reason people are here on this earth is to procreate, and you decide to be with somebody forever, then yeah, the majority of the time you're going to have children with the person that you're with, because that's what humans do. But for those who do not want to do it, their marriage is not any less than, or is not inferior to how marriages traditionally go. Hell no, I don't agree with that shit. I want to see what the comments is looking like in this video.
And then we had the other side who came along and said, well, it's not that. Okay, well then, like, what is it exactly? And I know you said, well, it's people who love each other. Two people love each other. Well, but then why two people? Why do they have to love each other? All these kinds of questions. You get into what if they're in the same family? What if brothers and sisters want to marry?
No,
and I know every time that comes up, the advocates for gay marriage will say, well, that's a slippery slope argument. That's a fallacious. But it's actually not. It's like we're trying to get to what do you even think this institution is now, since you've rejected out what we were saying it was. And I've never found a compelling definition. And any definition offered, it's like, well, what's even the point then? Why do we even need this now?
We don't.
I just don't see how a gay marriage in any way damages a straight marriage. I don't see it at all. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems to me that people want to be. Look, if you wanted to look at logic, especially in our modern society, which is pretty fucked when it comes to relationships, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of all marriages end in divorce anyway. They don't make it. I don't know if anything would damage marriage and damage the institution of marriage is the option of divorce. I don't think gay people and gay people getting married in any way, shape, or form changes a bond that you have with your wife. It's just called marriage. Yeah, it's a human-invented thing.
He's spitting bars.
If we decide that gay people can get married too, I just don't see how it damages anything. I don't think it tears down the definition of marriage in any way. It just opens up the possibility that people who are gay won't be discriminated against.
Yeah, I don't think that a gay couple existing directly impacts. There's a gay couple and wherever, and I'm with my wife in our house. Like obviously, there's not. But I'm not talking about on the individual level. I'm talking about on the societal level.
Right.
I would agree that divorce, especially this no-fault divorce, rampant divorce. I don't think it's as high as 50%. I know that's often quoted. I'm not sure where that comes from, but it is high. It's too high. And
Chris Rock has a great joke about that. He said those are just the people with the courage to get out. It's like how many cowards stay.
But it's also true that the advocates for what we call now traditional marriage, which I just call marriage, but the advocates for traditional marriage put themselves at a disadvantage by especially in the churches, like allowing this rampant divorce to occur. And then you've already sort of given up on some marriage is supposed to be monogamous and permanent, as well as procreative. Well, you've given up monogamy and permanence, and so now it's not. That's two of the three legs gone, and so now this assault was waged on the procreative part of it, and it was difficult to withstand it because the institution had already been weakened. So I agree with you there, but my answer to that is to try to reinforce what marriage is, not to just give up on it entirely. And I still think you're left with this question of, like, if marriage is not what I'm saying it is, then why do we even need it? What's the point? I mean, you're saying it's a man-made institution.
Yes.
But you're also, like, the way that you're presenting it, it's a totally meaningless institution.
No.
They don't need it at all.
No, it's not meaningless. It's because it means something to the people that get married.
Facts.
So it's just a subjective, symbolic thing. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Right now it is, absolutely. Maybe back in the day when it would actually have utility and shit, but right now there's no benefit of it. Back then, the reason why, marriage was even created was, sustaining your life. It had utility. Like, motherfuckers needed to get married and combine families and have kids and, keep the farms going and all that shit, bro. But nowadays, it's not needed for anything. It's subjective. It means something entirely different to each person. Right? It's more of a societal thing at this point now. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing. I don't want to fucking dive into the pros and cons of marriage and shit, but I mean, that's valid, bro. Like, it's been deconstructed to what he's saying. Like, it's no longer monogamous. It's no longer permanent. It's no longer procreative, in his words. It isn't. It's something unique and different to the motherfuckers that want to do it. But it's a unique bond from couple to couple, and it's important to them, and that's all that fucking matters. It ain't got nothing to do with your fucking marriage, right? You treat your marriage how you want to treat your marriage, but don't have these standards that you think all marriages should fucking have, because they look entirely different from fucking person to person in 2022.
So if you're
kind of what it is, look, there's a massive responsibility when you're married and when you have children to keep your family together and you raise and keep everybody happy and healthy. And then,
my bad. And he said, like, keeping a nuclear family together, like, you can do all that shit without being fucking married. Like, guess back then, right, the nuclear family, husband, wife, kids, keeping everything together, but you can do the same shit without being fucking married. Like, to me today, marriage is fucking pointless. I don't want to get into that, but it's pointless to me.
And there's great reward to that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work out. It's people change. People are fucked up. It doesn't always work.
The marriage institution.
And so I don't think it should be outlawed because 50% of the people fall apart. Just like I don't think it has any effect whatsoever on a straight couple if a gay couple decides that they want to make it official. And that's what it is to them. It gives them a feeling that they're accepted and appreciated and that they're not discriminated against because they happen to be homosexual.
So what you're articulating to me is the damage that's done by gay marriage to the institution of marriage.
But how is it done? How is that in any way damaged straight people?
Because we are making the institution meaningless.
But it's not meaningless.
Well, but
it's very meaningful to the people that have it.
Subjective, symbolic, and it's about your own personal feelings.
Isn't it, though?
Well, no, I would say that it's not.
Well, if it's not subjective and it's not symbolic,
it codifies and protects and gives a name to a thing that actually exists, which are man, woman couples creating people, creating babies.
But not always.
Right, but that's still the nature of the union. So,
but what are the percentage of people today that are married that don't have children? I bet it's pretty high amongst heterosexuals.
Probably.
Is there something wrong with that?
I think there is something wrong with that. I think there is something wrong with, getting married and saying, oh, we're not going to have any kids at all.
But why is there something wrong with that?
He says he has such an old school ass perspective on this shit. It's wild.
Personal choice. Well, why is it wrong that two people are like, I am deeply committed to work and I don't want to sacrifice any of my career and I don't want to ruin a kid.
It's going to cause issues, but granted, people can do what they want.
Because I'm constantly at the office, but that's where I get deep satisfaction and that's what I'm focused on. And the woman says, that's great because I don't want children either. I really am attached to my interests in my career and what I like to do. That's not damaging your relationship with your wife and your family. I certainly don't think of it as a threat to my.
Matt Walsh is talking about the institution of marriage and how all this shit is like diluting it of what marriage is supposed to be to him and to whomever else who agrees with him. But it don't work that way no more, bro.
Marriage or my family.
Yeah, it is a personal choice.
Right, but shouldn't people be allowed to make those personal choices? Like, isn't that a fundamental aspect of what it means to be American, to have that freedom?
Well, but right now we're not talking about what people are allowed to do. I'm not saying
we're talking about marriage, gay marriage.
Okay, we were just discussing straight couples who choose not to have kids.
That's also a personal freedom issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that straight couples should be legally required to have kids, but if you're asking me,
you got issue with it.
Do I think it's the right choice to just get married and choose not to have kids ever? I do not think that that's the right choice. It's their choice, but people can make choices that are wrong.
Yeah, but who the fuck are you to say that it's wrong, though? See, I don't like that shit, bro. I don't like that, dog. Like, why do you think it's wrong? What makes you think that that's wrong if it's for that couple? Because you have issue with where the institution of marriage is going, or maybe you have issue with the fact that people aren't having kids, or if it has nothing to do with you and they're happier for it, it's not hurting anybody. But you feel like it's hurting. But I haven't heard him articulate a point that makes me feel like damage is being done to society or the institution of marriage. All I hear is what he thinks marriage should be, and if it's not done his way, then it's wrong.
And you can disagree.
But how is it wrong if they have a fulfilling and wonderful life together with that choice? If their thing is that they just want to have a bond between the two of them to just like take it to the next level, let everybody know, like, we are married. If I die, my money's going to go to Helen. And if Helen dies, I'm going to mourn her because she was my wife and now I'll be a widower. Like, to some people, that distinction gives them peace and security and makes them feel better about the relationship, that they're both so committed that they've legally signed documents that say that they're bound by law and under the eyes of God or whatever you believe in.
Yeah. They're able to make that choice, but I think you're still rejecting one of the purposes of marriage. And in the scenario that you just outlined, you're also deciding to live a really self-centered life. You're saying,
what if you're not? What if your work is very charitable? What if it benefits humanity in a deep way? What if you spend a lot of time doing, healthcare work and, social work, and you're deeply committed to your community? It's not selfish at all. You're just dedicating your time to something other than raising new human beings. But you're dedicating your life to enhancing other human beings that are around you.
That's a hypothetical.
It is a hypothetical, but so is yours, right?
Yeah, but I think most of the people that choose, like, we're not going to have kids, and the rate of those rates are declining, and the age when people first have kids is also going up, and all of that.
Yeah.
And most of the people that are making these choices, I don't think it's because they're involved in charity work. I do think that it is more the scenario you outlined the first time around, which is just like, well, this is what I'm doing. You know, I have my job.
See, his shit would make, well, it still wouldn't make any sense, because like for someone to be up here and feel and be so convicted on their stance of what other people are doing, I don't agree with that. You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't made any valid points. It's just that I don't like it. I don't think it's good. Why? Because I don't like it, right? But if he was to actually, you know, list the consequences of, you know, not having children or procreating, and you know, describe how that affects society, you know what I'm saying, then it wouldn't be like I just don't like it or it's wrong. Like this can potentially happen, like birth rates are declining, people are having children older and shit, but at the end of the day, it's still their fucking choice though, you know what I'm saying? Still their fucking choice. And there's some people out here who are happy without having kids. It's the minority, but still, you are in control of your own decisions, right? So who are you to question that? But I guess it would sound better if he actually was giving reasons why he feels the way that he feels, outside of, I just don't like it.
Give it up.
Yeah. But don't you think that people should have the freedom to live their life in that way? I think human beings vary widely, in a huge way. And I think there's some human beings that find a very fulfilling life just reading books and traveling and experiencing different things and seeing art and doing whatever the fuck they want to do. And they don't necessarily have to have kids to live a fulfilling life that way. And if they choose to do that with someone who they have a loving bond with and who they get married to, I don't think it's a bad thing that they don't want to have kids.
Well, I guess we have to, maybe we're running into a question of, you know, now you get to the real fundamental question.
I think it's like a fundamental freedom thing.
Yeah, we're not disagreeing, I guess, on the freedom aspect of it, because again, I'm not saying that you should be required to have kids.
But you're imposing your sensibilities and what you think is important in life to other people. But everybody has a different idea of what's important in life without hurting anyone. The thing is, like, what I'm saying is, these people that are married, that don't have children, they're not harming anyone. They're not harming these unborn children that they never have. They're not harming anyone. And it doesn't affect your relationship with your family and your marriage at all.
Yeah, but I'm not imposing myself on them or harming them by answering a question about
judging them because of how you feel about it, though.
Right.
How I feel about their choices.
Right, but nor are gay people doing that to you.
I think the harm comes from, on a societal level, when we start breaking down these basic central institutions, like the institution of the family and of marriage. That's where the harm comes from. And the more that people believe, the more that we build a society where it's believed that marriage is objectively meaningless, right? It's entirely subjective. It's just about making you feel better. The more that we build a society like that, I think that's where the harm comes in. The worse it is, and people are going to reject marriage, and that means more. You know, fewer kids are being born. Also, more kids are being born in a context where they don't have that stable family structure. So the harm definitely comes. It may not be this.
That's probably the most valid thing he said thus far. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're married, you have a higher likelihood of maintaining that nuclear family because you're married. And nuclear families are the fucking, backbones of society, right? So that makes sense. But you don't have to be married to have children, and you don't need to be married to have a nuclear family. You don't, as long as you find the right one. But, now we're talking about, relationship dynamics and all that shit. And, we're in, regardless of what the fuck he's saying, man, society is fucked right now as far as, female to male dynamic and relationships and all that shit, bro. It's trash, regardless if we getting married or not. You know what I'm saying? So that's a whole different conversation, man. But that was the first thing I heard him say. I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Immediate, connect the dots thing. But and we can already see that.